All right, we got the victim perk tier list. We're going to jump right in. And it's probably going to be another super long video, and I'm sorry. but the last one for the family perks was like an hour long, and I imagine this one probably will be too. Because we're going to go over each perk individually. And that might take a while. And also, before we get started, I will say that last video, the family perk tier list, this game does have a lot of inconsistencies and stuff like that that don't make a ton of sense. And, you know, one thing over here stacks, but then this perk doesn't stack, and it's really weird. So, like, Serrated is an example. Serrated is an S tier perk, and I think I rated it F tier because I was under the assumption that that perk did not stack, and in fact, I was streaming playing Texas Chainsaw, and some rando came into the chat and criticized me for using Serrated because they were like, the damage doesn't stack, so it's a terrible perk. And I listened to him, so that's my bad. So yeah, so a perk like Serrated. So if I do that again in this video, where I say some perk is F tier and it turns out I don't understand how the perk works, go ahead and let me know. Because it happens sometimes with how weird and inconsistent a lot of the stuff in this game is. All right, so let's dive right in. We got a great perk to start, which is Agitator. Easily the most controversial of the victim perks, I would say. Family mains absolutely hate this perk. It's a strength perk for Connie, Julie, Leland, and Sunny. And it says that incapacitating grandpa has a greater negative effect on the family. Family bond is reduced by 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels at level 3. I think you know where this one's rated. That's 8. That's S tier. It's arguably the best perk in the game. There's one other perk I think that competes for that top spot, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, this thing is insane because it erases progress, so much progress, just instantly. Does it need a nerf? Probably. But not, I don't think it's a pressing issue to where it needs to be. It needs to be nerfed right now. I would prefer that they go around and buff, or not buff, but fix some of the stuff that just flat out like doesn't work before they worry about like nerfing stuff. Like one of these perks, which we will get to, makes it so that whenever grandpa roars, it's not supposed to detect you, and that perk just flat out doesn't work. Because if you get detected at all, it uses up all your tokens instantly and detects you anyway, so it does literally nothing. So I prefer to see some of these things get fixed. Some of these perks that are like clearly something from a past build that they just never bothered to do anything about. Like, for instance, the one that makes it so when a family member turns a generator on, it like, you know, does something to them, and it's like family members don't turn generators on anymore because it starts on. So like that needs to be fixed, stuff like that. But yeah, Agitator's S tier. It's an unbelievable perk. Really strong, and I would say that it's one of those perks where every single match, one person needs to have this on and has to go stab grandpa. Because otherwise, they'll just fill up blood buckets and get him to tier 5 really quick. And now I think we're starting to see with the change to where car battery starts on, that it is becoming a thing where family is trying to rush down to basement as fast as they can. And I think the counter to that eventually, once victims stop being stupid and start figuring things out, is you are going to need to play more stealthily and not just rush and make a ton of noise and do whatever. And once that happens, games are going to slow down. And once games slow down, there's going to be more blood being fed to grandpa, and he's going to get leveled up quicker. And you're going to need to bring Agitator to offset that. So S tier for Agitator. All right, next up. Am I bleeding? When your health is below 10%, 25%, 40%, you are highlighted to all fellow victims. I'll tell you right now, for this tier list, F tier is basically going to be reserved for perks that like just straight up don't work, or perks that are like, they do something that, like I mentioned earlier, seems like it's from an old build, to where this is really not going to have any effect on gameplay. So SOS, am I bleeding? I'm always going to call it SOS because of the logo whenever I see that in the skill tree. But am I bleeding? D tier. You know, it's usable, but the reality is that nobody ever heals teammates, ever. Like, no one ever does that, because victim side is such a individualistic role compared to most other asymmetrical games. Everyone's kind of just working by themselves. Very rarely do teammates stick together in that way. And, you know, people don't really use comms very much, at least on PC with crossplay off. So if I were to be like, hey, you know, I'm highlighted because I need someone to come heal me, probably not going to do you a whole lot of good. Be better off to just use that perk slot to bring something that will allow you to heal yourself for more health, and just go find a healing item yourself. That would be much easier than forcing a teammate to come all the way over to you to heal you and like wasting their time when they could be off trying to open a door or get an objective done. I'd put it at D tier. Next up is Bad Blood. I could feel myself getting sick. My nephew got me sick, so if you see me like pausing or having to mute my mic, that's why. Next up is Bad Blood, strength perk for Anna, Connie, and Leland. Upon death, your killer's damage output is reduced by 30, 40, 50%. For 120 seconds, they will be highlighted on the map for 60, 90, 120 seconds. This is a really tough perk to rate, because this perk is nuts. This perk is a really good perk. The problem is, nobody cares about helping out their team if it doesn't mean that they're helping out themselves. You know, like, this perk does nothing for you. It only helps out your teammates. The way that it helps out your teammates is insane. It's an insane buff, but people just don't care about helping their team. So, and I guess there could be an argument for, you know, it's better to have a perk that is going to help you while you're alive, because while you're alive, you are a better asset to your team than you are dead and giving them a really good effect. I could definitely see that argument. But the effect itself is crazy, like 50% damage reduction, and everyone can see them for 120 seconds. So for 2 minutes, one family member is basically rendered useless. That's nuts. Like, that's crazy. But I get why people wouldn't like the perk, because it only takes effect after you're dead. I think that it has a lot of usefulness on kind of a troll build, which, by the way, we will get more into builds after this. It takes a while to level people up and get a feel for what builds are good and what's not. This is good on like a Leland, for instance. Does Leland even get it? Yeah, he does. I thought I had seen it on Leland, but I had to double check. It's good on like a Leland and Anna, because you could play those characters as kind of characters that are designed to just get points without escaping. You could just go around, like, you know, maybe bring Agitator or something. I haven't looked at the skill tree, so I don't know if you can bring both perks, those two at the same time. But point is, you could go around, stab grandpa, stab family members, stun them, open up crawl spaces, use items, do all these different things where you're being a really aggressive player and earning points that way, and kind of distracting the family and not worrying so much about escaping. I've had like games where I've gotten 3K points and I died because I was just running around like a madman, stabbing family members and doing all that stuff. This perk could be really good on them if you were playing that kind of build. But, you know, and then there's the argument, like, if you're doing a really good job, then everyone will escape before you die, right? So it's tough to say how good. You know, I'll put this in C tier. Well, let's say that. I don't think it's bad. I think the effect itself is actually really good, but I think it's just that most people are not going to be willing to give up a perk slot to help their team and not themselves. But I think the effect itself is excellent. Next up is Barroom Hero, which says your stun time is reduced by 20, 40, 60% at level 3. Anna and Sunny get this perk. It's an endurance perk. You don't really need to reduce your stun time, I don't think. You're not going to be getting stunned very often in this game. It's just not going to happen. And if you do get stunned, I don't think being stunned for less time is really going to matter, because if you get stunned by a door, unless the family member's bad, you're going to be dead anyway. Because, as you're getting up, they're going to get like 3 or 4 free hits off, and it's not going to matter that you're stunned for less time. So I don't think it's like useless. The perk still functions. It's just, I don't see any scenario where you would really like need to use this perk. Next up is Been Working Out. Strength is increased by 3, 5, 7. Much like I did on my family stuff, I'm going to say that any of these perks that just increase a particular stat is just automatically C tier. They're all solid. There's usefulness for all of them because, just especially for victims, maybe even more so than family, it's important to get to that 40-40 threshold for proficiency in stealth, so that every action you do will not make noise, even when you fast tap. So, I see the value in these generic increase in attribute points, because it's like, oh, maybe you want to put some points into this to reach a certain threshold for something, and then you have enough points to go put in proficiency or stealth to get it to 40 or whatever. So all these perks, these generic perks, are going to be C tier. Next up is Bomb Squad. Probably the second most controversial perk, I'd say, for victims. It's a proficiency perk for Anna, Connie, Julie, and Leland, and it says you are able to dismantle a trap without the use of a bone scrap. Dismantling traps is also 50 and then 80% faster at level 3. This one's really hard to rate because obviously this thing is like S tier against a hitchhiker, but it only works against hitchhiker. So personally, I would put it in A tier, because it is a perk where it's like, if you see there's a hitchhiker in the lobby, you have to equip it. Someone has to have this. And honestly, I would say that as the meta evolves, if you have someone in your lobby who's like a troll Leland, who's just running a full like Backstabber build, they don't need Bomb Squad. But anyone who is actually attempting to get objectives done, like, like a Connie, a Julie, a Sunny, they need to have this perk. Every single one of them. Because like a good hitchhiker is going to trap up all the best avenues for escape. And I have experimented on some different builds where I just didn't bring Bomb Squad, and it changes the game. I have had so many games where I'm about to escape, and it's like, oh no, hitchhiker trapped the generator, so I need to go find bone scrap now. And in the process of looking for a bone pile, hitchhiker shows up and stops me. And it's like, if I had Bomb Squad, I would have been able to disable his trap and escape. I would have been out. So they like having it, not having it so often is the difference between escaping and not escaping. So I think it is A tier, but it's an interesting one because, it only works against hitchhiker. All right, next up we got Bounce Back Better, which is a toughness perk for everybody, which says healing items used are 25, 30, 40% more effective, counts for being healed and healing yourself. I think this perk is like, I get super underrated. I don't think you see a lot of people talk about this perk. 40% extra healing is really good. One of the better healing perks in the game. This perk is fantastic, I think, and arguably the best healing perk in the game. There's another one that we'll get to that's also really good, but this healing perk is crazy good, and it's nice because as time goes on, you're starting to realize how valuable of a resource healing items are, because now it's gotten to the point where family members are much better than they were at launch, obviously. And so family members are getting to the point where they're really like, maybe you get 1 or 2 doors open, 1 or 2 objectives done upstairs, and then you got to jump down a well. And it's like having the ability to heal yourself back up to full is a big deal. And turning small health pots into basically big health pots is a big deal. So me personally, I think that this perk is A tier. Because it means you're using less healing items, you're getting yourself back up to full easier, and it just becomes a nightmare for the family. So I think this perk is A tier. Next, we got Pikachu. I don't know why it keeps hovering over that, but it does. Next, we've got Choose Fight, which says sneak attacks and close encounters stun family members for 2 seconds, 3.5, 5 seconds longer for Annie, Julie, and Leland. Amazing perk, A tier. This perk's really, really good. 5 extra seconds on a stun is incredible. An incredible perk, especially on those characters where you're playing a Backstabber build. So Anna and Leland really love this perk. And it's a must take on those characters if you're playing that build where you're going around stabbing people in the back. So really good. 5 extra seconds is crazy. And yeah, not much more to say. Really good perk. And here we go. Choose Flight. Available for everybody, unbelievably. Which says, once depleted, your stamina bar will instantly refill. And it has 3 charges at level 3. This is the one. This is the one that's right up there with Agitator. This is S tier. Up there with Agitator, arguably the best perk in the game. It's between this one and Agitator. Just crazy. It basically means you become impossible to catch for like a long period of time. It's really nuts. It's also getting to the point now where this perk is a must take, because we're having this sort of reactionary battle where most family members are now taking Scout. And as a reaction, you have to take Choose Flight, because if you don't, then you're just going to get ran down and killed every time. So I'm hoping that we don't reach the point in this meta where it becomes a requirement that everybody bring Scout on the family side and everybody bring Choose Flight on the victim side. But it seems like more and more we are kind of spiraling closer towards that happening. But we'll see what happens in the future. But right now, Choose Flight, S tier for sure. Next up is Clear Eyes. Clears your vision to help identify poison objects, traps, and locks set by the cook. Range is 6 meters at level 3. I think this is very underrated. I'd put it at B tier. Being able to see what things are padlocked and what isn't from a distance, I think is really helpful. More importantly, I think it's really helpful for traps. Being able to see hitchhiker traps is really important, because there's a number of times where hitchhikers could put them in spots where you can't really see it's coming, like on the other side of a gap, for instance. There's that gap on Slaughterhouse where there's grass on the other side, and you're coming up from those stairs. If they put a trap there, it's really hard to see the trap, and so there's a good chance you'll just go through there and step right in the trap. And having this to let you know, hey, don't go through that gap, is really cool and important. So it's primarily good for that. For traps. Maybe cook locks, not so much. And poison objects, definitely not so much. But for traps, it's really decent. All right. Next, we got Conditioned. When you completely run out of stamina, it takes 20% less time, 40%, 60% less time to start regenerating for Anna, Julie, and Leland. You know, I can't say that I've ever really been at a point where I've been like, man, I really wish I could get my stamina back right now. Because the only time that you're ever going to be able to really regen stamina is once you're out of a chase. And at that point, you kind of have all the time in the world to regen stamina. Like, you're not going to start like just jogging in the middle of the chase. Now, maybe there's a situation where it's like, oh, 60% less time to start regenerating means that if you crawl over like a Leatherface cabinet, which is a really long animation, or you go through a crawl space that's a pretty long crawl space, it'll start regenning in the middle of that animation. So by the time you come out the other side, you'll be, ready to run again. I could see the the merit behind that. So I would still put it B tier. I think it's a really solid perk. I don't think it's like crazy good or anything, but I think it's solid. B tier, possibly A tier, but admittedly, I haven't experimented with this perk much. Next up is Cover Charge. Sprinting uses 30% less stamina for 5 seconds, 40% for 10, 50% for 15 seconds upon exiting a hiding spot you occupied for at least 5 seconds. This one's definitely D tier. Nobody uses hiding spots, and even if you did, needing to be in there for 5 seconds is just not good. Like, using less stamina for 15 seconds to waste time for 5 seconds is not that good. But I could potentially see a build where you hide in a hiding spot and you're just dipping in and out of hiding spots in order to get these little buffs, because there's a few different perks that do this. But as it is right now, I'm going to put it in D tier. It could possibly go up if there is a build like that could be decent, but I'll have to experiment with that. Next up is Cover Recovery, which says stamina recovery is increased by 60% while using hiding spots or shadows. Like I said, once you're in, not in a chase, you really have all the time in the world to recover. So being able to do it faster, I think, is just not helpful. You don't need it, man. Like, it's going to be the difference between like 2 or 3 seconds, and you're not in any danger at that point. So yeah, I just don't think it's a very good perk. I got not much more to say on that. Deadbolt. Doors you latch are 10%, 20%, 30% harder to barge through. Proficiency perk. Latching doors is actually a really underrated mechanic. Like, you should be latching most doors that you see. The only time that I can think of that this has ever been a thing that matters at all is like that room that can spawn the fuse box on gas station, because if you're playing as like Cook, there's only one door to get into that room, and then there's a crawl space on either side. So sometimes victims will go in there, latch that door, and then start working on fuse box. And it's like, oh no, I got to get through this real quick. 30% isn't that much, and very rarely are you going to be at a point where it's like, man, I got to barge through this door now, or something bad's going to happen. That just doesn't come up very often. So to me, this perk is D tier. Next is Dead Weight. When you're the last victim alive, the family's proximity radius is 60% smaller than it usually is. This is really weird. So their proximity radius is 60% smaller. It's weird to me that you would want their proximity radius to be smaller. I guess it makes it easier to know when they're right on top of you, as opposed to just being like kind of near you. But then it's like, then that gives them a better chance of actually like straight up sneaking up on you. One might argue that this is just a straight up buff for the family. I'm going to be bold and say that this is F tier. I think this thing is like a straight up, you could argue that it's a buff for the family, and it makes it easier for them to sneak up on you. So I don't know why you'd ever want to take this. And also, let's say it wasn't a buff for the family. Let's say it was a clear and obvious, benefit for you, the victim. A perk that only works when you're the last victim alive is pretty pointless, because very rarely are you going to escape when you're the last victim alive unless you're already close to the exit anyway, at which point you don't need a perk to help you. But yeah, I would still put it in F tier, even if it was a guaranteed beneficial effect. Next up is Efficient Backstabber, which sneak attacks have a chance to not consume a bone scrap. Now, this got nerfed, I believe. This description is outdated. I believe the nerfed version is either 25% or 20% at level 3 instead of 40. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's 20 or 25, but that 5% difference doesn't make a difference to me. That's a pretty significant nerf. I think it's probably 25. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to look it up. But this perk is still decent. It's not as good as it was, obviously, at 40%, because it basically made if you have 2 bone scrap, you're really good chance you're going to keep one of them. It's hard to rate this because it's something that's so RNGezy, it's hard to rate it. I would say, as it is right now, the new nerfed version, I would say, is still probably B tier. I think it has some merit as a perk in like a full Backstabber build. And then the next one, which is Efficient Grappler, we'll kind of do these back to back, is the same perk, except it's I think this got nerfed to 20% at level 3. Which is you keep your bone scrap after a close encounter instead of a backstab. Both of them are solid. Like, getting to keep bone scrap is also really important with the way that they nerfed bone piles so that you only get 3 bone shards out of a single pile. So I think both of these are B tier. Like, both of these perks are just solid. I think at the very least, Efficient Backstabber I would have said was A tier. With the old version at 40%, but with the new nerfed version, I'll say that it's down to B tier. Because you could also argue that, like, you don't need to keep bone scrap unless you're just like a troll. Like, the amount of bone scrap you get from the bone piles is plenty, even with the new nerf where you only get 3 out of a pile. So, I'd say they're both solidly B tier. All right, next up, we have Efficient Locksmith, which is when unlocking doors, you have a 40% chance the unlock tool won't be consumed. This is gonna be really bold. I think this is S tier. I think it's up there with. It's not as good as these two. It's not. I still think it's an S tier though, because 40% is a good chance. It basically means that if you have 2 lockpicks on you, you're gonna keep one of them. And then it's possible you could wind up getting lucky and keeping both. But it's just crazy because unlocking doors is such an important part of the game. And then they purposefully, you could tell with the way maps are laid out, they have purposefully made the game in such a way to where, like, you're supposed to run out of lockpicks and then have to take a detour to go find a box to get more. And being able to skip that saves you so much time. And you could just, there will be moments also in matches where you only have 1 lockpick. And maybe you go up to a padlocked door. And you go and you unlock it, and it's like, oh, you saved your lockpick. And now you could get through it. Like, the one that I think of that where this happens the most is, say, I'm playing Connie. I lockpick the basement door that comes up the ladder on Slaughterhouse. I go through that crawl space to the right and go to the red door that leads to the generator, and that red door is padlocked. So now I've only got one lockpick. And let's say the lockpick box didn't spawn in that room with the car, the garage. So I'm going to have to go way out of my way to get another one. But I only have one left. I go and I pick the padlock. That's gone. I efficient locksmith procs. So I keep my lockpick. Now I could get through the door, and there's going to be a box that has lockpicks in it on the other side. So I can reload. Huge. Like that's a massive, because if I didn't have efficient locksmith and it didn't proc, I would have to go all the way back downstairs to get another one, which wastes like a minute or two, which is crazy. Or I would have to go somewhere else on the top level, which is way out of the way, which again wastes another minute or two. And there's a chance family's going to find you and start chasing you, and you're going to waste even more time. So this thing is crazy. Like if you think that Connie's ability is insane, then you have to think that this perk is insane, because it basically does the same thing. Like, yeah, you can't blow through locks super fast like you can with Connie's ability, but it saves so much time in a similar way that Connie's ability does. But just, different. So it's insane. I think it's a really, really good perk. Next is Empowered. After surviving a close encounter, you regain 10, 30, 50 health points and 90% stamina at max. I think this perk is actually really good, especially if you're doing like a sort of a grappler build. You could literally just run up to family members to heal yourself, which is kind of funny. You just run up with a bone scrap and start struggling and heal yourself. In the right build, with the perk that allows you to like win, grappling mini games faster, I think this perk, I really do think that it's like A tier, but I'll put it in B tier. I'll be chill. All right, because it's not great just on its own. It requires others, so I think that's fair to put it in B tier. Not great just by itself. It requires other perks to make it really work. But when you do use it with other perks, I think it's an excellent one. I'm going to try to go a little faster because we're 30 minutes deep and we're not even halfway done. Exit strategy. After unlocking the door stays highlights for victims for 60 seconds at level 3. This one's interesting. It's one of the default perks. And it's interesting because there's another one that makes it to where the door you're currently working on is highlighted. Oh, it's weird that they have both, because they both kind of achieve the same effect, and it's kind of odd. It's good for solo queue, certainly. It's a very good informational perk. I would say it's solidly C tier. It's just a solid perk. A really good perk, like, to start out with. There's other stuff that has much better effects, but it's just a solid perk because it's good informational stuff. Because if you're playing with people who don't know the names of things, you could be like, hey, I'm working on the, right door to car battery on gas station. And then it's highlighted. So then when you send that information out to them, they look up, oh, there it is. Or if they're not using mics and not listening at all, then they could just use their eyeballs and see, oh, hey, that door is going to be unlocked. So there you go. Decent, solid. After using extra drip is after using a health item, you will continue to receive 6 HP for 12 seconds at level 3. And this is for Anna and Connie. Also an incredible healing perk. It's up there with this one that I'm honestly really tempted to put extra drip up there in A tier. Because it's also an incredible healing perk. Like, if you combine this, first of all, it's really good just by itself. 6 HP for 12 seconds is really good. And as far as I'm aware, that ticks. It's not 6 HP over 12 seconds, which some people might think it is. It's 6 HP every second for 12 seconds. So if you combined extra drip with that other healing perk, it basically means that even a small pot is going to full heal you. That's crazy. That's really good. I am going to put it in A tier. I think it's A tier, so I'm putting it in A tier. I think those two healing perks are both excellent. Next up is Fight Ed Flight, which says after surviving a close encounter, movement speed is increased by 10%, stamina consumption is reduced by 10% and 20%, and then 30% for 15 seconds at level 3 for Julin, Leland, and Sunny. Increased movement speed is great. Stamina consumption being reduced is great. It's just that I don't know when you would like use this. Like, I mean, I guess it's pretty good in a build where you're grappling. Any kind of grapple build is going to be decent. The only problem is I don't think you could take this with a lot of the other grapple perks, but I'll say that this is solidly B tier. I think it's a solid perk. Nothing special, just solid. Fight Back is after surviving a close encounter and the family member you fought has a stamina regeneration reduced by a magnitude of 50% for 30 seconds at level 3. This is another one where I'm just like, I don't know. Like, yeah, you would use this in another grappler close encounter build, but reducing stamina for 30 seconds, like, yeah, that's great. But I would argue that if you're going to take a perk that's basically like, hey, after I'm done grappling, after I'm done with a close encounter, I want to be able to get away, you're probably better off taking Fight and Flight. Like, that's better. The movement speed is better. Less stamina consumption for you is better. The max stamina for them is not as good, because then like if there's multiple family members that are showing up, maybe because like a good family, they're going to be communicating, be like, hey, I'm struggling with this guy, I need help, and maybe you get out of that grapple just before they get there. The person that you just grappled with having their stamina reduced is irrelevant if another family member is chasing you. Whereas if you took Fight and Flight, the increased movement speed is important because it's going to help you avoid getting caught by that second, potentially third family member that's on the way. So I would say that this is strictly worse than, and I would actually put it D tier because I don't think it's on the level of these ones. I'd say it's D tier. Fish hooks, sneak attacks decrease the family's max stamina for a limited amount of time. Max stamina is reduced by 50%, 75% for 30 seconds. This one's interesting because the description of the perk, I've not tested this, so I don't know, makes it sound like it decreases the entire family's max stamina. So this is our serrated perk of the victim side, where I don't know how it works, so someone will have to tell me. I have experimented with this perk and I have not figured it out. Because the only way you could know is if you were on the family side and you were like looking for it. If it does increase or decrease the entire family's max stamina by 75% for 30 seconds, this is A tier at least. If it's just the one person that you backstabbed who gets their stamina reduced, this is like D tier. So I don't know where to put this one. Someone, if anyone makes it this far in the video, you'll have to tell me. And hopefully you actually know and you're not just talking out of your ass. Because half the time somebody will be like, this is how it works. And they're dead wrong. They don't actually know how it works. If you have somehow tested this, then you can let me know. So I don't know that I even feel comfortable like rating it. I'll rate it under the assumption it's not the entire family's max stamina. I'll say that it's just the family member that you backstabbed. Because why would it punish the whole family if it's just the one person who got backstabbed? I don't know why it would. It'd be strange if it did, but it might, because this game is weird and inconsistent. So let me know on that one. Full hearts. While below 25%, all healing items within 25 meters at level 3 are highlighted. Another really solid aura reading perk. Some of the stuff is down that this person made is out of order, so I was like, what is that perk? Really solid aura reading perk. If you were running like a full like healer build, this would probably be pretty decent. It can save time. I'll put it solidly C tier. Like, yes, it could save time because then you'll know right away, like, oh, there's a healing item there. For the most part, I know where healing items spawn at this point, so I don't see much use for it. The only use for it, obviously, is knowing, did somebody already take that healing item or not? So you could save time, wasting time going and checking a spot where a healing item spawns, and then it turns out, oh, somebody took it already. And the reason I put this at C tier too is because I've noticed that has become a problem. There are many matches now where I'm getting back down to the basement, even after only one trip up top. When I come back down, all the healing items are gone. I don't know what my teammates are doing with these healing items. I guess they're just like picking them up and healing themselves for 1% of their health and then taking another one to go. I don't know. But healing items are getting used up quickly, so I could see the usefulness of this perk somewhat. Next up is fuse lights, which is when the fuse box is turned on or off, all family members and the fuse box are highlighted for 10, 20, 30 seconds. The perk like effect is really good, but just being the fuse box is not enough. If this was like any objective, if this was like fuse box, valve, generator, and car battery, then I could see the usefulness of this perk. But because it's just fuse box, it's not as helpful. Now, having said that, at the moment, there is some helpfulness with this because highlighting the family can be important because of how you could body block the exit gate. So, like, if you were to turn on the fuse, you could say, well, oh, look, Leatherface made it down there before me, so I shouldn't run down there because he's already down there and he's body blocking the exit. And then also being able to use it as a distraction does have some merit because you could go hit that and see, oh, look, all three of these goofballs are heading down to the basement. That has freed up the opportunity to go get car battery or whatever. So I see some potential with this perk. I'd put it solidly B tier. I would. If it was all 4 objectives, it'd probably be S tier. Maybe they shouldn't do that. But just fuse box alone, I think it's still B tier. Next is Grappler, which is at level 3. Button taps are 50% more effective in the close encounter minigame. I think Grappler is, honestly, I think Grappler's A tier. It basically makes it to where you win close encounters in like 2 button presses. It's really nuts. It basically makes it so that as long as you have bone scrap, any family member that comes near you, as long as there's only one of them, is just a non-threat completely. It's pretty crazy. And on these 2 characters specifically, Anna and Leland, the 2 that can actually get this perk, it's really good. If you max out strength with Leland, which he's already at 40, so you only need to invest 10 points, you literally win in like 2 button presses at max. It's crazy. So I think this perk is really, really good. Next is High Tolerance, which is Sissy's poison isn't as effective on you. The duration is 20, 40, 60% shorter. This one's pretty interesting because it's like, here's the sister perk to Bomb Squad, right? It's a perk designed to counter a specific family member. And yet this one's just not very good, is it? Like, you just don't care. Like, her poison doesn't matter that much. I never tested this to see if this worked for Sissy's bugged poisoned hits. If it did, I could see it being helpful then. But now the nerfed version of Sissy just sucks, so there's no real reason to ever take this. This person's all out of order now, whoever made this. I wanted to make my own, but it would take like hours to make. So I was just like, whatever, I'll use somebody else's. Yeah, so I would put this D tier. It still works. Maybe there will come a point where Sissy gets buffed and this becomes more important, but as it is right now, I don't think it's that good. Highly skilled is the generic perk that increases your proficiency by 7 at level 3. So I will say that this one's C tier, as we already talked about. Next up is intuition, which is holding a key item, highlights the location it can be used for 40 seconds, 70 seconds, 100 seconds. This is actually better than you would think, because I know that some people would see this and be like, it's a noob perk. Like, once you figure out the spawns, you don't really need this anymore. But it can save you time on certain maps. Like, if you're playing Family House, for instance, and you grab the valve, there's a big difference between the valve, you know, spawning outside the house and spawning like in the side yard. Like, there's a big difference. One is going to let you potentially get the valve. The other one is like, oh, well, the valve is not an option in this match because of the way it spawned. And then obviously there's some helpfulness to the fact that it can save time. Like, even if you're playing on Slaughterhouse and you're going for valve, you can be like, oh, you know, where did it spawn in the basement? Because it could spawn in quite a few different spots. And even on gas station, like, did it spawn around the back of the house, or did it spawn way over off to the by that well? A big difference. Like, if you come up the middle, grab a valve, and then go to the back of the house and see, oh, it didn't spawn there, like, that's not good. So it could save time. So I think it's just like it's a decent perk. I'd put it at C tier. It's okay. Jack in the Box would leave you a hiding spot. You take 15% damage, 35% less damage for 11 seconds. This one's pretty interesting, because I could see a future where a perk like this is actually really good. Because I could see a few, like 35% is a good damage reduction. And I could see a future where it's like, you know, you're in the middle of a chase, someone's about to catch you, and you just jump into a hiding spot real quick and let them pull you out. Because it doesn't do a whole lot of damage when they find you in a hiding spot. And now you get a 35% damage reduction. And this one, unlike the previous hiding spot perk, doesn't have a minimum amount of time that you have to be in the hiding spot. It's just when you're leaving a hiding spot, you get this buff. You don't have to be in there for a minimum of 5 seconds. And like I said, 35% less damage for 11 seconds is pretty good. But having said that, not a lot of people use hiding spots at the moment. So I'm going to put it C tier, because I think 35% is really good. And I think it has more usefulness than these perks that are down here in D tier. Next up is Jump Scare, which is triggering bone charms and chickens, increases your sprint speed by 10% for 4 seconds. And then it goes to 8 seconds and 12 seconds. If this like stacks, I could see this being pretty good. Like, if you took Jump Scare and just like went into, say, that like freezer room in the basement that has like 50 bone charms in there, and just did a circle and started running into them, just kept stacking sprint speed, that'd be interesting to test. I'm going to assume it doesn't, because if that did happen, you'd probably see a bunch of people doing that. I'm going to assume that you just get the 10% when you run it. But like I said, serrated doesn't work that way, so you never know. Assuming it doesn't stack, this perk would be D tier. If it does stack, this perk is probably A tier, borderline S. But because I've never heard anyone talk about this perk, I'm going to assume that it does not stack. Next up is Jumpstart, which is stamina consumption on dashing is reduced by 50% at level 3. I think this is A tier. I think it's one of the better like stamina endurance based perks in the game, which is funny because it's actually a toughness perk for some reason. But 50% less stamina on dashing. is really good. It's going to make it really hard for you to get caught. Just a good perk. It's very basic, very simple to understand. Next up is Knock Knock. After escaping your restraints, all basement exits are highlighted for 60 seconds. This one's an interesting one to rate because it is purely through and through a noob perk. You absolutely, because basement spawns don't change. So the only reason you would ever need this is if you are brand new to the game and you have no idea where the exits are. But after not even that much time, you're going to learn where the basement exits are. And then this perk will be pointless. And 60 seconds isn't a lot of time either. I think I'd put this in F tier. Yes, it's not bugged. Yes, it has some usefulness. But you'll reach a certain stage while you're playing this game where you're just like, this perk is not, it does nothing anymore for me. So in that sense, I think it is F tier. But it's, it's A tier if you're brand new to the game, because you're not going to know where the basement exits are. But once you do know where they are, it's F tier. Dropping below 30% of max health will automatically equip a bone scrap. This only occurs if you have an empty inventory slot. You get 5 uses at level 3. If you're running like a grappler build, high strength, anything like that, I could see this being pretty good, because it basically means anytime someone's chasing you and they're by themselves, if they're about to kill you, you could just immediately like look at your health, turn around, boom, close encounter, and escape and get out of it. Now, having said that, it's also kind of interesting because the lower health you are, the less likely you are to win the close encounter. So it's like, if you're below 30% health, there's a chance that you'll like lose that close encounter anyway. But I guess it's a nice attempt at like a last ditch effort to survive. Hey, that's why it's called last ditch effort, huh? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this is a really tough one to rate. I would probably say it's A tier, because having the ability to get a get out of jail free card like that is really good, especially if you're playing Anna or Leland, characters that are kind of designed to take a lot of damage, designed to win close encounters. So then it's like, if you ever do get to a point where someone is about to kill you, boom, you can just get out of it with a close encounter. Next up is Light on Your Feet, which is Grandpa is 100% less alerted by the noises you make during the start of your game. This one's a really fun one to talk about because someone who maybe uses this perk 100% would imply that nothing you do at the beginning of the game makes noise. But the problem is, what qualifies as start of the game? What does that mean? Is it like the first 30 seconds of the match? Is it only the part when you are getting out of your restraints? Like the first 10 seconds? Is it the first minute? I don't know. If it's just only when you're getting out of your restraints, this is an F tier perk. If it's like the first full minute that you're in the basement, it's like an A tier perk. If it's the entire time you're in the basement until you make it out of the basement, it's an S tier perk. Like, I don't know how it works, so it's hard to. And also, is 100% truly 100%? Does 100% mean literally nothing you do will help wake up Grandpa? I don't know. If it truly does mean you make no more noise and it's for the entire basement phase, this is an S tier perk, because it would be insane on the characters that are not stealthy, like Anna and Leland. Because then you could just be as loud as you want, go pick up those bone scraps, and you're not punished for it at all. But it depends on how all that works. I'm not even going to rate this one. I'm not even going to put it up there. I don't, because I don't know how it works. If it works, the way that I said it does, it's S tier. But this one's really interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Lone Survivor. Last victim alive will receive a 20% increase to health and stamina And it will also increase the amount of time family members will be highlighted by 30 seconds. This one I think is D tier because like that information is just not helpful. Like against a good family, it's either not going to matter because you're about to escape anyway, or it's not going to matter because you're not close to escaping and the family is going to be able to lock down all the exits and everything anyway. And 30 seconds of a highlighting the family is not enough. Like you're not going to be able to do a whole lot with 30 seconds of that information. And then a 20% increase to health and stamina just isn't that much to make a huge difference. Because if you get found when you're the last person alive, you're dead. It's that simple. Like, for the most part, like if you're playing Anna and you like jump down a well, you know, but then they're probably going to get Grandpa to level 5, and there's not going to be a whole lot you can do. So I just don't. It's not F tier. It has some merit, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting it any higher than that. Next is Lucky Lockpicker, which says the first time you use an unlock tool to open a door, it has a 50% chance not to be consumed. Now, this one is important to mention because I think this perk is way worse than I thought it was when I made the Connie build video. When I made this build video, I was under the impression, because this game is so inconsistent, that it stacks with efficient locksmith. So I was under the impression that anytime you use a lockpick on a basement door, it makes it so that you take the 50% from Lucky Lockpicker and the 40% from Efficient Locksmith, so you now have a 90% chance of not wasting your lockpick. But at least in my testing, it would appear, unless I'm just really unlucky, that they do not stack. So that instead of having a 90% chance, you just have a 50% chance. Like Lucky Lockpicker overrides Efficient Locksmith. And because of that, this perk sucks. This perk is not good. I would put it in D tier for sure. Because why does it not stack? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but it appears that it doesn't. So I'm going to put it in D tier. It's weird. Why do some things stack and other things don't? We'll never know. Medical benefits. Healing a fellow victim also heals yourself for 80% of total healing applied to your teammate. I mean, at tier 3, this perk is just crazy good. You know, 80% is excellent, but it's like no one's ever gonna come over to you to do this. Like, because that's just not how victims play. Victims are not gonna stand there and be like, yeah, man, come over here. And then like it's hard to know where victims are, and if they don't communicate with you, you can see that you're not going to know that someone's hurt. If I go on my mic and I'm like, hey, I have this perk, come to me for healing, half the time they're not going to listen to you. So just because of the way people play, this is like a C tier perk. In a vacuum, I think it's an A tier perk, but because of the way people play, it's not that good, unfortunately. Next is Meter Reader, which is when a family member operates a generator, both the family member and generator are highlighted for 30 seconds. It's only available on Sunny for some reason. Why is that? That's really weird. And maybe it would have been helpful originally back when they had to turn the generator on, because you could communicate that with your team. Like, hey, these idiots didn't turn on generator. But as it stands now, it's like the only use that it has is when you've already turned off the generator. And now you can see, oh, somebody's working on it and I'm making a dash for the exit. So I need to the only time this would ever be helpful is on Family House. That's it. Every other map, you're going to be able to see as you're making a dash for the exit that they have already started working on the generator. I know that this isn't like a bugged perk or anything, but I would still put it in F tier. Like, why would you ever take this? Next is Must Have Been the Wind, which is All noise generated when interacting with crawl spaces or while gathering items will be completely disregarded. Has 3, 4, 5 charges. This one's funny because it's only good on Anna. Connie and Julie both should have enough stealth and proficiency to where none of this matters. Like crawl spaces, I think, uses strength, but it doesn't matter. If you have 40 and 40, no action you perform will make noise. So this is pointless on those two. So it would only be good on Anna. And then there's the issue of like these perks that have charges that make it so making noise and all these things don't are disregarded. It like doesn't work. So this one might even be bugged for all I know. Someone can confirm if it's bugged or not. If it is bugged, it's F tier, obviously. Even without the bug, it's only going to be useful on Anna, so I would still put it D tier. Next up is No Cell, which is getting hit by a family member results in 80% less damage. Has 1 charge, 2 charges, 3 charges. No Cell. This might be controversial, but I'm going to do it. I'll put it in A tier. I was going to put it in S, but then I thought about it and talked myself out of it. Here's the thing about No Cell. In the current meta, where every single Leatherface is running the build that allows them to one-shot you, this perk is really, really good because you have to have a perk that makes it so you could take away his one-shot. Having a perk that makes it so Leatherface cannot one-shot you anymore is insane and really good. Having said that, there's an argument to be made that if you're any good, you should have the ability to just know where gaps and crawl spaces are at all times in the basement and be able to avoid Leatherface and not have to worry about getting hit by him at all. So you don't really need No Cell. But I still think it's A tier because there's going to be moments where it's just unavoidable. Like, let's say you're playing on Family House where it's really easy for him to patrol like 4 out of the 5 exits or whatever. Having a perk where it's like, okay, in case he, sneaks up on me and I manage not to hear him or he catches me somewhere, or you have a situation like I've had in the past where you go to use a gap or crawl space and some idiot teammate uses it right instead. And so you can't get through it and you get hit in the back. Having No Cell to survive that is really nice. But yeah, I would say that this one is A tier. I can't believe we're an hour in. I feel like I'm Otsdarv over here. I'm talking for way too long. Overlooked. Grandpa's soda ability is active. You will remain undetected even if you are spotted. It has 2, 3, 4 charges at level 3. I'm so mad about this perk because I think this perk is so underrated if it worked. But this is one of those perks that doesn't work. It makes it to where when you are sneaking around, if you're moving, when Grandpa his sonar goes off, it's going to make it to where it burns through all your charges and detects you anyway. So it's useless. It is a worthless perk. And that sucks because I think that having the ability to not get detected would be really huge for the early game because you could do stuff like unlock the basement that wakes up Grandpa and then just keep going. And you don't have to stop for that first roar. That'd be crazy good. And it would really throw off the family if you could do that. But as it is now, it is bugged and it is useless. Next is Party Gift. When a victim escapes, all family members are highlighted to the perk holder for 30, 40, 60 seconds. Potentially really good on Connie. Because Connie, more often than not, is going to be the first person who gets out. Because she's the one who's all about unlocking doors and stuff. So being able to highlight all family members for 60 seconds is really good. And now that I say that, I realized I read the perk wrong. And it's that when another victim escapes, all family members are. So it's only really helpful for Leland. It's the opposite. Connie's not going to get much use out of this because typically she's going to be one of the first people to escape. It's really only going to be helpful for Leland. It's 60 seconds. It's not that good. I would say that it's D tier. Like, it's not useless. There's some usefulness to this. It could be good in like a troll build for Leland. If you're someone who's like, yeah, man, I'm going to help everybody else get out first. And then once it's, activated and I could see where all the family members are, I could go run up to them if they wind up separating themselves from the rest of the pack. So I could just go grapple them and stab them and stuff and annoy them. But as far as a perk that is actually helpful, it's not that good, but it's nice for trolling. Pick on me. When using an unlock tool, the door or gate you are attempting to open will be highlighted for all victims for 30 seconds. This is the companion perk to that one we talked about earlier, where it highlights the door after you've already unlocked it. This is the opposite one where it highlights it while you are attempting to unlock it. They're just so similar. I'd put them on the same tier. They're basically the same perk. It's so weird that these two exist because they're practically the same thing. So yeah, I'd put it C tier. It's solid informational perk. Radar detector. When Grandpa's sonar is activated, all family members are highlighted for 5 seconds. It has 7 charges. This one's interesting because I haven't used this one. I've heard it's bugged though. Is that correct? I've heard it's bugged in the same way that Overlooked is, in the sense that it doesn't actually highlight. It either doesn't highlight family members or it burns through all charges. I'm going to assume that whoever told me it's bugged is telling the truth, because I love listening to random people. And I will say that it's F tier because it's bugged. If it's not bugged, it's actually pretty decent. If it's not bugged, I'd probably put it in B tier if it's not bugged. Next up is Rally Leader, which is it helps all victims recover from being incapacitated more quickly. Recovery is 35% faster. So when somebody gets incapacitated, you have to go over and help them up. And it's only 35%. So in all my hours played, I don't think I've ever once helped someone else up when they've gotten incapacitated. And 35% is not that much anyway. So I'm going to say this one's F tier as well. Ran Track is one of the generic perks that increases your endurance by 7. This one is, where is it? C tier, as we talked about. Next is Rescue Medic, which is healing others, adds 50, 70, 100% more health to your target, while simultaneously healing you a random amount. There is like a build you could do where you use Rescue Medic and wherever that medical benefits, and just go full medic build with Connie, which would be pretty interesting. But like I said, because of the way people play, this perk just doesn't work very well because people just don't play in a way to where you'd get any kind of value out of it. So where did I put that one? I put that one in C tier. Is that what I did? Yeah, so I would say that this one is solidly in the same tier. And it would be higher if victims, played differently. Next is Saboteur, which is after using a generator or fuse box, the interaction cooldown for family members is 10, 20, 30%, 30 per second, seconds longer. I saw somebody who said this perk was S tier. It was like a random Reddit post. I don't think it's that good. 30 seconds longer is great. For the generator, because then you can say oh, generator's off, and then you're gonna have but it's also a weird perk because the 30 seconds is really only going to matter that much on Family House. Whereas a lot of these other maps, like Gas Station and Slaughterhouse, if you get the generator off, not that you should ever be using the generator on Gas Station, There's not going to be a battle to like get the generator back on. For the most part, the family's going to just be guarding the gate so that you can't get out. So this would really only be like a relevant perk on like, I guess if Connie or Leland used this, and they were the ones who did the generator or fuse box, and then like Anna took advantage of it because she can activate her ability and not get killed. It's okay. And then fuse box, it's not as good because like as it is right now, family members could just body block the exit, and then it's like it doesn't matter if he has to sit there for 30 seconds or 10 seconds. Like you're not getting out either way. So an extra amount of time to stand there, I guess, could be kind of helpful because it can give you 30 seconds or whatever to go back upstairs and work on something else. It's just more time that they're distracted. But I just don't see this being like a crazy good perk. Like I think this is just, for me, it's just solidly C tier. Like it's okay. Next is safety in numbers, which is while all victims are alive and before any have escaped, you receive a 15% bonus to your max health and stamina. This is one of those things where it's like 15% to health and stamina. Great, cool. Not worth it to take a perk that potentially could be deactivated in 10 seconds. One of your teammates dies immediately, which can happen fairly often because of Leatherface being able to one-shot people. Not worth it. I would actually even say, this might be a hot take. I'm going to put it in F tier because it's not worth it. Like, most of the time, at best, you're going to have this perk for like 10% of the match. And a 15% increase for 10% of the match is like, it's useless. Sanguine Shadow. If you drop below 60% health, it can be refilled slowly by staying hidden and motionless in shadows or hiding spots. Health received is 1 HP or 2 HP per second at level 3, up to a maximum of 60% of your total HP. I don't like this perk because it's like, that's a long time. What is that, 30 seconds at level 3 that you got to wait before you get the maximum? Like, I don't want to wait around for 30 seconds. I can just run and go find a health pot in that amount of time. But I wouldn't put it F tier. I'd still say that this is like D tier. Because I could see some usefulness for this, especially as we get to that point where people are really using up health pots over and over and over again. Next is Second Wind. After being injured, you are able to recover 70 stamina by avoiding damage for the next 7 seconds. I would actually say this is F tier because it's like, if you're avoiding damage for the next 7 seconds, then you're not in a chase anymore. The only way it's going to happen. And no, that's not true. Avoid damage for the next 7 seconds. Yeah, this is better than I'm saying it is. It's not F tier at all. Now that I'm reading the perk. Because there's certain crawl spaces and stuff that you could use to, but it's only after being injured. And it's 70 stamina. So I think it's solid. I don't think it's anything great. It's just a solid perk. I think there's better perks for this, like the one we're about to talk about, which is Slippery, which is after navigating gaps or crawl spaces, you move 15% faster for 7 seconds. Personally, I think this one's A tier because it basically makes it to where if you are running from any of the chaser characters like Hitchhiker and Sissy, it makes it almost impossible for them to catch you by themselves because of this speed boost. So it's really, really nice. And I guess if you were to like play Julie or Connie and combo this with Second Wind, I could see some, being really hard to catch. But I love the speed boost. 15% is great. It's a counter to Scout as well. So I think Slippery is an excellent perk. Sneaky Pete, generic stealth perk, goes into C tier. You can't see this over here now, I just realized. There's too many C and D tier perks, but that's okay. because I'm going to tell you exactly where they go. If it goes into C or D tier, I'll let you know, okay? Next is Spotter, which is if a family member moves within close proximity to where you are currently hiding, they will be highlighted for all victims to see. Highlight range is 1.5, 2 meters. Geez, that's F tier. You're not going to ever use hiding spots, and if you do, what good is it to like let people? And it's only available for Sunny. What is up with that? Because I guess his gimmick is like he can spot people, right? But yeah, you go hide in a hiding spot, and then it's like they find you, and it's like I could just communicate that to you through voice. You don't need to have someone highlighted for that. I could just be like, hey, I'm in a hiding spot upstairs. They just found me. Good. I just accomplished the same goal that this perk does. Ooh, stunt double. Receive less damage when jumping out of windows or climbing down wells. Get back on your feet faster. Stunt double. It's a tough one to rate, man. Stunt double. Less damage. The 70% less damage basically means you can just use wells forever, which is annoying as hell as a family member. And then getting back up faster means that this is like an S tier perk on Family House. Because you could just jump out the front window for free, basically. I just don't think it's on the level of these ones up here, but I think it's like above the ones that are in A tier. It's like still really good. I feel gross putting it in A, but I don't, it's not on the same tier as these ones. But yeah, it's really good. It's either A or S. I wouldn't complain if you put it in either one. Even if you're not playing on Family House and you don't get that usefulness out of it, basically having a perk that makes it to where you could use wells nonstop for free is crazy. You know, if you don't have this perk, it basically means that every time you use a well, it's going to take a good chunk of health out. And it's also huge because if you get hit and you're making a dash for a well, it could be the difference between you getting incapacitated or not when you go down the well, and you only get one incap before you die permanently. So being able to avoid an incap is huge. So this perk is really, really good. Taekwondo, slamming doors on family members will stun the target for 12, 14, 16 seconds at level 3. Probably one of the more hated perks because people act like being stunned by doors is just a complete epidemic, and that, you know, if you get stunned by a door, you're going to be stuck there for eternity. I think it's personally pretty overrated. 16 seconds is a long time. Yes. It's an insane stun time. However, I've never really had any issues getting stunned by doors. It's pretty easy to avoid. I don't know where these people are coming from that are like, you get stunned by a door, you're going to be stunned for 10 hours. I've never had that experience. Very rarely have I ever been stunned by a door, and I have over 100 hours in this game now. But yes, 16-second stun is still really good, so I would still put it in B tier because that is a long stun time if they do manage to pull it off. I just think it's not as easy to pull off that stun as some people think it is, which is why I only have it in B. Tool tracks. After escaping your restraints, all unlocked tools within 50 meters will be highlighted for 30, 60, 90 seconds. I would put this in D tier. It's not in F tier like the basement exit perk because unlocked tool boxes can move around. And sometimes they can move around in a way that's like devastating. I just had a game where somehow like no unlocked tool boxes spawned like anywhere in their normal spots. And there was like one place that spawned an unlocked tool box in the whole basement. It was nuts. So being able to have that information can be helpful sometimes and can save a little bit of time. So in that sense, I think that it can be very minimally helpful, not outright useless. Tougher stuff is another generic perk. Once again, that's going to be in C tier. You can't see it, but it's in C tier. Just letting you know. Tourniquet. After consuming a health item, you don't bleed out for 10, 20, 30 seconds for Anna and Julie. So this is one of those things that's kind of like helpful for late game. And I just don't think it's that good. I think it's easy enough to like hold off the bleed out effect if you need to. It's easy enough to find healing items and heal yourself up. Yeah, I don't think, and it's only really going to be helpful like late game. I'm going to be bold and say that it's F tier. Twinkle Toes, you have a 75% chance not to trigger bone charms. This isn't right, is it? Isn't there a second part of this perk that says you also do not trigger chickens at all? I think there is. I believe it's 75% chance not to trigger bone charms, and you will not trigger chickens at all at tier 3, I think. Very underrated, I think. I think Twinkle Toes is very underrated. I would put this B tier. You know, it basically will make it to where you could just trigger bone charms for free. I mean, yes, there's a 25% chance it might screw you over, but 75% chance is quite good. And then there's lots of places, gas station comes to mind, where not triggering chickens can be a big deal because there's chickens strategically placed right next to the two gates that lead to gas station. So being able to run over there and not slow down at all. And then there's also usually a chicken placed there that leads to the smokehouse room door. Being able to just run right past them and decrease the chance that a family will spot you before you get in there, and I think is a huge deal. The Twinkle Toes have put it B. Well trained is after jumping down a well, all bone, scrap, and unlock tools within 25 meters are highlighted for 30 seconds. Once again, this is like an informational perk. And I think it's even more. I would put this in F tier because even though bone scrap piles and I'm not 100% sure if bone scrap pile spawns do change. I think they do. Unlock tool spawns definitely do. But even so, even if they shift around every match, by the time you jump down a well, you've already kind of established where things are in the basement. You've already gotten past the basement phase, so you should know where things have already spawned. So you don't need this. You already have that information by the time you jump down a well, so I don't think there's any real use for this. And then last, but not least, or potentially least, I don't know. We'll find out. We're finally here, folks. After being injured by a melee attack, avoiding additional damage for 15 seconds will reward you with 50/70. 100% of the health you just lost. Incredible perk. Arguably S tier. Avoiding additional damage for 15 seconds will reward you with 100% of the health you just lost. It's tough because, like, jumping down a well nullifies this because you get whacked by a big melee attack and then make it down the well. That damage you take from, dropping down the well is going to negate this. But getting back 100% of your health is really good. Makes it really difficult to kill you. Because if you're good at looping, you could just go through gaps and crawl spaces and avoid damage and, get all that health back. It's at least A tier. If you put it in S tier, I probably wouldn't be mad at you. Just like that other perk, Stunt Double. Either one of those, if you put either one of them in S tier, I wouldn't argue with you. I just wouldn't feel comfortable putting them on the same tier as these three. But I also think that they're probably a half step above everything else that's an A tier. If there was an A plus tier, these ones would be in it. So there you go. There's my victim perk tier list that took way longer than I wanted it to. Almost an hour and a half. Sorry about that. I guess we're starving now. We're just going crazy with these videos, the length of these videos. But thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I'll try to end this quick. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think about this video. And then I will see you all in the next one. Thank you.